Okay, so one of the most important skills in algebra is the ability to factor. But factoring is not just important in algebra, it's important in all levels of mathematics. And let's see if we have the factoring skills to simplify this expression. What we have here is a fraction that involves some variables, but technically in algebra, we would call this a rational expression. And we want to simplify this situation. So if you can do this, of course, I'm giving you a big hint. You're going to have to know how to factor. But if you could simplify this expression, go ahead and put your answer into the comment section. I know it's a little difficult to write powers and variables, but do the best you can. But anyways, I'm going to show you the right answer in just 1 second. Then, of course, we are going to go through this problem in detail and step by step. Again, this is a super critical skill for those of you out there that are especially studying algebra. But before we get started, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is John, and I have been teaching middle and high school math for decades. And it really is my true passion to try to make learning math as easy as possible. So if you need assistance in mathematics, check out my math help program at tcmathacademy.com. You can find a link to that in the description below. And if this video helps you out, or if you just enjoy this content, make sure to like and subscribe, as that definitely helps me out. Okay, so what do we have here? Well, we have one polynomial being divided by another polynomial. And when you have a polynomial, two polynomials involved in a fraction situation, we call this a rational expression. This is a huge topic in algebra. But what we have is 6u to the 6th power minus 24u to the 4th power minus 10u squared. And all this is being divided by negative 2u squared. And what we want to do is simplify this expression. And let's go ahead and take a look at the answer. The correct answer is the following. We have negative u to the 4th power plus 12u squared plus 5. Okay, so that is the correct answer. And if you got this right, let's go ahead and celebrate by giving you a nice little happy face and a plus a 100% and multiple stars so you can brag to your friends and family that indeed you are a professional certified expert in the area of factoring the greatest common factor. Okay, because that's what we're going to be doing in this problem is factoring out the GCF or the greatest common factor, and especially in this numerator expression right here. And this is how we're going to simplify this expression. So if you're like, I'm not even quite sure what you're talking about, well, stick around for a couple minutes and you'll totally get this. But again, if you plan on taking algebra or if you are studying algebra, you must be a professional certified expert in all areas of factoring. This is a huge topic, and we're only kind of scratching the surface in this one problem. But I'll give you some suggestions if you want to improve your factoring skills. Matter of fact, when it comes to factoring, through my years and decades of teaching, in terms of algebra students, if you're struggling in algebra, let me kind of state it this way. 99% chance you struggle in factoring. Okay, so if you could take care of your factoring problems, in other words, if you're struggling with something with factoring, if you figure that out and you become an expert in factoring, everything will go so much smoother for you. But here is our problem. And what we need to do is think about, well, what's going on here, right? And if you don't really understand the problem, well, effectively we have a fraction and we're going to do a simpler version of this type of problem in algebra. Matter of fact, I'm going to be doing this version right here, just a little bit easier because we have all these u's going on. We have a trinomial, a three-term polynomial in the numerator, and we have this monomial down here. But we'll do something a little bit easier. But before I even do this problem as an example problem, let's even do something easier, which just is a good old-fashioned fraction. So let's suppose we have the fraction 10 over 30. Now, I did mention that factoring is important in all areas of mathematics. Okay, and a matter of fact, you were doing problems like this way back when you were in elementary school. So if I asked you to reduce this fraction or simplify this fraction, I'm pretty sure most of you would be like, oh, that's just 1/3. And of course, it would be perfectly correct. But why is that 1/3? Well, what we're doing is basically what we need to do here. We are factoring the numerator, okay? So you're like, what are you talking about? Well, 10 is the same thing as 2 times 5 or 1 times 10. Okay, so 1 times 10 is 10. Now, what am I doing here? Well, you'll see here in a second. 30 we can factor as what? Well, 3 times 10. Okay, so that's 30. So when you break up a number into other numbers such that the product of those numbers is this number, in other words, 30. Let's just kind of get our nomenclature or terminology down here. So factors of 30 would be 3 and 10, but there are other factors, 2 and 15, et cetera, et cetera. But what we're looking for is the biggest or the greatest common factor between the numerator and the denominator. Okay, so 10, for example, is 2 and 5, and 30, okay, 2 and 5 are factors of 10, excuse me, and 30 we could think of that as 2 times 15. But what is the greatest common factor? Well, these factors would be in common, but the greatest common factor is 10. So if we can factor out the greatest common factor between the numerator and the denominator, well, what we can do is simply cross cancel one like factor to another between the numerator and denominator, and what we're left with is the answer. Okay, so that's technically what you're doing when you are simplifying a numeric fraction, and the process is exactly the same in algebra, but of course, it all depends on our ability to factor. So let's go ahead and get into it. So here is a problem, and it's a little bit easier, I think, to kind of illustrate the points here. Again, we are going to be factoring using the greatest common factor. Now, there's other things you need to know. As an algebra student, you need to know how to factor quadratic trinomials. You need to know special factoring rules, things like the difference of two squares, group factoring. Factoring, again, it's a huge topic in algebra. And if you're struggling, again, I'll give you some recommendations on how you can improve. But if you want to go ahead and try this problem, go ahead and maybe pause the video and see if you can simplify this a little bit, this problem, which is like an easier version of the problem that we're going to be doing. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into it right now. So what we have to do is we want to factor the greatest common factor in the numerator. Okay, so we're going to try to factor out the GCF here. Now the factors of 2x are simply just 2 times x. Nothing much we can do there. So we're hoping that we can identify like factors between the numerator and the denominator. So for example, we had 10 over 30. We had that 10 in the numerator, and we had a 10 in the denominator. So what we're trying to do is create or write the problem in such a way where we have like factors between the numerator and denominator. But what you cannot do, and this is one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen in algebra, this is a huge, huge mistake, is students go, oh, I can just kind of cross cancel an x, or this x, I could take away this one x from here and one x from there. You cannot do that, right? So for example, if I have 2 plus 3 over 2, what's 2 plus 3 over 2? Well, hopefully you're saying, come on, Mr. YouTube Math Man, get to the point here. Well, that would be 5 over 2, right? Well, let's suppose we're like, oh, I can just cross cancel these 2's, and my answer is 3. Well, is 3 the same thing as 5 over 2? No, right? So do not make this super common error. Matter of fact, I have a couple videos on my YouTube channel that stress this because, again, a lot of students make this error. Okay, so let's get into this right now. So let's just focus in on factor out the greatest common factor between 4x cubed and 12x squared. Okay, so here it is. So what you want to do is look at the factors of each of these terms. Okay, so 4x cubed, or sorry, I think I said 4x cubed. If I did not, I'm saying it now. So 4x cubed plus 12x squared. All right, so here is our two terms. This is our numerator, but we're going to try to identify the GCF, which of course is 4x squared. Now, let's suppose you are new to factoring out the greatest common factor. Well, this is what you want to do. Okay, you want to break up this term into its respective factors. So of course I could write this as 2 times 2, but we'll leave this as 4 because I'm looking at 12. I go, oh, I know that 4 is a factor of 12. Okay, so 2 is a factor of 12, but what's the greatest common factor? That would be 4. Now, of course, you should already know how to find the GCF and the LCD and the LCM, lowest common denominator, etc., all from your study of arithmetic. But of course, most students struggle with fractions and find the LCD. Again, I'll give you recommendations on all this in just one second. But 4x cubed, we can think of this as 4 times x times x times x. And 12x squared is the same thing as 4 times 3. That is 12 times x. Okay, so what is the greatest common factor? Well, let's just identify the common factors here. Well, let's see here. 4 is a common factor, right? It's a factor of this and it's a factor of this. So we could put that into our GCF. And now we have 2x's here and we have 3x's here. So the only thing they have in common is 2x's. Not, this has 3. Okay, they have more than one x in common. They have 2 x's, and x times x is, of course, x squared. So when we multiply that together, the GCF is 4x squared. All right, but what do we do with this? Well, what we're going to do with this is factor, okay? So 4x cubed plus 12x squared, we identified the GCF as 4x squared. Now, when I take out my 4x squared, I take out this, right? This is 4x squared, and here 4x squared is this 4 and these two x's. So what is left? Well, what's left here is an x, and what's left here is a 3. And what we're going to be doing here is using the distributive property to factor out the GCF. You see, this is the greatest common factor. So we have 4x squared, put parentheses. Now what remains? X plus, okay, 3. Okay, now if I was to give you this problem right here and say simplify this, you would take this 4x squared, you would multiply it by this x, that would give us 4x cubed, and then this 4x squared times 3 would get us 12x squared. All right, but the whole objective here was to factor out the greatest common factor. Of course, that would be 4x squared. So here we have something being multiplied by something else. These two things are factors of this expression. Okay, so now that we know how to do that, let's go ahead and finish up the problem. So here is our expression, and the numerator up here, this 4x cubed plus 12x squared, we just factored out the GCF. So here's 4x squared times x plus 3, okay, over 2x. So now we're looking at 4x squared and 2x. 4x squared is the same thing as 2x times 2x, right? So 2x times 2x is 4x squared. I have a 2x down in the denominator, so I can cross cancel one 2x for another 2x, and I'm left with a 2x. So that would be 2x times whatever is in the numerator, which of course is x plus 3. So that would be the correct answer, 2x times x plus 3. But you could also write your answer this way by multiplying back the 2x to both of these terms. So that would give us 2x squared plus 6x. Okay, so this is just a basic kind of problem on an illustration how we factor using the GCF. Now, if you understand this, then the problem that we're going to be doing in this particular video should be pretty easy. But let's go and take the next step, which of course is having you subscribe to my YouTube channel. I will not interrupt this lovely math video with this very important announcement. If I did not need your support, I need your support to grow my channel. Now, why do I want to grow my channel? Because I want to reach as many people as possible that need help in mathematics. It does me no good to have studied math, for so many years and taught, for decades and decades. Yes, I'm pretty comfortable with my math knowledge and abilities, but I am trying to help others, learn math. Okay, so that's why I am on YouTube. That's why I have thousands of videos on YouTube. That's why I've been on YouTube for 10 plus years. It's like, hey, I'm on a mission. Okay, but these videos, do take some time and effort, but it's worth it to me if I can help just one person. And when you subscribe, or if you are a subscriber, thank you so much. But I look at my subscribers as like students, okay? And although I think I have like 518,000 subscribers at the time of this video, that's a huge amount of people, but every single person is important to me. So anyways, I need your support. So hit that subscribe button, and if you're gonna do that, just hit that notification bell as well so you can get my latest videos. Okay, so let's get back to this problem. So here it is. This is effectively very similar to the example problem I just did there. So what do we want to do? Well, we're going to go ahead and see if we can factor out a GCF, a greatest common factor, out of the numerator, and then hopefully we have some factors we can cross cancel. Now, let me caution you here. Sometimes you cannot factor out the GCF. In other words, it basically is prime, or the only thing you could factor out is a 1, which by definition would mean that it is prime. So there's no guarantee that you can factor out a GCF from a term other than 1, but you have to try. Okay, so first things first, when it comes to factoring, always try to factor out the GCF. That's always kind of almost your first move. So let's go ahead and get into this right now. So 6u to the 6th power minus 24u to the 4th minus 10u squared. Now this is going to be a little bit different. Well, not totally different, but it could be a little bit confusing, especially if you don't understand powers and exponents. So there's different things here. You have to be very careful. So 6 and 24, you're like, well, okay, 6 times 4 is 24. So maybe 6 would be a common factor. Well, yes, that's not really the case because 6 is not a factor of 10. So you have to go back to the drawing board and hopefully you identify 2 as being a common factor. And you kind of think through it, well, 3, well, 3 goes in here, 3 goes in there, but 3 doesn't go into here. So 2 is a common factor. Matter of fact, 2, in terms of the numbers here, is the greatest common factor. Okay, so that's excellent. So we have found our number. Now what we have to do is take a look at all these u's. So u to the 6 is like u times u times u times u times u times u. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then here I have 4 u's. There's 4 u's, and here is 2 u's. So how many u's do they all have in common? Well, they all have 2 u's in common. Okay, so that leaves us u to the 4 u's right here. Remaining here, this would be u squared, and here there would be no u's remaining. These are in terms of our powers. Okay, so 2 is our number, and we can factor out again a u squared, so 2u squared. All right, so that's what we can factor out. That is the entire GCF. And so what is the first term? What's inside of our parentheses? Well, this would be a 3, right, because we're factoring out a 2, so we're left with the 3. So that would be 3u to the 4th, right? So we have 4 u's up here remaining. So 3u to the 4th minus, okay, so here we have our 24. What's remaining? 12u squared. Okay, so minus 12u squared minus what's remaining here. Well, we used all of our u's, but we have a 5, so that would be 5. Okay, now if you are new to factoring, you still might be confused with this. So let me go ahead and just give you some quick recommendations on factoring. First of all, let me stress it's absolutely critical, and I am not exaggerating at all when I say that you have to be a certified professional expert in factoring to pass algebra, to master algebra. Okay, so what I'm going to strongly suggest for you is to check out my Algebra 1 course. Okay, if you're at that level of mathematics, if you're in pre-algebra, that's fine. You could still benefit from. I'm going to leave both courses in the description. Now, if you are in algebra, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about factoring. Okay, again, it is a must-know, non-negotiable skill. Okay, so I would just suggest that you check out my full course instruction, and I'll get into all the details and really give you a comprehensive instruction on all this stuff. I do have a lot of additional videos on my YouTube channel on this topic as well. But some of you might be saying, I forget even how to find the LCD of a fraction or the greatest common factor of two numbers. So if that is your situation, then I have the perfect course for you. Okay, that would also include factoring as well. So check out my Math Skills Rebuilder course. Okay, Math Skills Rebuilder course. I'll leave a link to that. I'm going to teach you all basic mathematics, how to work with fractions, how to find the LCD, and I will teach you a ton of algebra, geometry, trigonometry, probability, statistics, etc., etc. Okay, so those are 2 things. Matter of fact, 3 things you could do. Either go check out my full Algebra 1 course, or my Math Skills Rebuilder course, or just scour through the thousands of videos I have on my YouTube channel. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish this problem up. Now that we've factored out the greatest common factor, okay, so we have our numerator up here. We're like, all right, I got to try to factor out the GCF, and indeed we did. So here is what our numerator is equal to. It is equal to 2u squared times 3u to the 4th minus 12u squared minus 5, all over negative 2u squared. Okay, so you can see here, these are almost identical. Okay, they're the same thing, except for this is negative. So basically, this is positive, this is negative. So these two u squares can cross cancel, but what we're left with is just a negative 1. Okay, so what we don't want to do is just leave our final answer this way. So negative 1 outside of this parentheses. So just go ahead and just multiply this negative 1 back into these terms. So negative 1 times 3u to the fourth would be negative 3u to the fourth, and negative 1 times negative 12u squared would be positive 12u squared, and negative 1 times negative 5 is a positive 5. This would be the most correct version of this problem. All right, now in terms of level of difficulty, this problem might be like a 3 out of 10. And I know a lot of you are saying 3 out of 10, this was difficult. This has to be, much harder than that. Well, no, I'm telling you right now, there is certainly much more challenging factoring problems. And here's the thing, okay? Do not get discouraged if you're like, boy, I'm overwhelmed. What you have to do when it comes to factoring is build up your factoring skill set, all right? Now, it's just like climbing stairs. If you are kind of just starting to learn factoring and you're like, well, I don't have time to learn all this other stuff. I just need to be able to pass my Algebra 2 course and get an A, and everything that you need to know, solving rational expressions, all this stuff. And everything depends on your ability to factor. But if you're not willing to do the work, okay, to climb the stairs, to build your skills, well, then you're just kind of kidding yourself. And I am a truth teller when it comes to mathematics. Watching little short tutorials or little videos, that's helpful if you already have the skills. Okay, that might be like a quick reminder. But if you're learning things for the first time, you need to really get yourself immersed in comprehensive instruction and put in the practice. Okay, but once you have that skill, I think for the most part, you'll retain it. You might need a quick review from time to time, but you will have kind of, assimilated that stuff into your long-term memory. Okay, so with all that being said, I definitely wish you all the best in your mathematics adventures. Thank you for your time and have a great day.